Good morning. I call to order the Planning Commission meeting of September 11, 2024 at 9 a.m. We are meeting in the San Mateo County Board chambers as well as remotely via Zoom. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, Madam Clerk, please proceed with roll call.
Commissioner Gupta,
Here.
Commissioner Hanson,
Here.
Commissioner Serrano Kwan.
Here.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Here.
Chair Ketchum.
Here.
Thank you, Chair. You have a quorum and staff is represented by Monowitz, Fox, and Gonzalez. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now open public comment for items not on the regular agenda. Madam Clerk, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will first call upon members in chambers, followed by speakers on Zoom. For in-person comments, the speaker slips are located in the ante room. On Zoom, please use the raise hand feature or *9 if you are calling by phone. And at this time, Madam Chair, we have no comments for this item.
Thank you. We will now close public comment for items not on the regular agenda. Moving on to items 1 and 2 on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
That was a motion by Commissioner Gupta and a second by Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Gupta?
Even though I was not there for the hearing on August 28th, but I took a look at the meeting minutes and I approved. So aye.
Commissioner Hanson?
Aye.
Commissioner Serrano Kwan?
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Aye.
Chair Ketchum?
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. Motion carries.
Thank you. We will now move on to the regular agenda. Madam Clerk, please introduce item 3.
Owner, Kim Ken Trust. Applicant, Chuck Rachel Water Solutions, Inc. File number PLN 00087. Location 22495 Cabrillo Highway. APN 066-330-190. And your project planner is Angela Chavez.
Good morning, commissioners and staff. My name is Angela Chavez and I am the planner for this well project. Sorry. Next slide, please. Apologies. For this application, the applicant is proposing to construct a new agricultural groundwater well to support the existing livestock operations on the subject property. The proposed well will serve as the primary agricultural water source. The well will be integrated into the existing groundwater equipment and infrastructure. The proposed well will be located in a flat open portion of the property several hundred feet from existing structures, the septic system and Libidos Creek. This project is appealable, or excuse me, this project is located within the Cabrillo Highway State Scenic Corridor and is appealable to the Coastal Commission. So I have the project parcel here highlighted in yellow. You can, I have some other views for you, but the house on the site is located along the east side of the property. Cabrillo Highway, you can see kind of runs through the middle. Little hard to read, but it may be easier on your screens there, but it is noted. This subject 9.8 acre parcel is zoned planned agricultural district and coastal district. It is accessed from and located on the west side of Highway 1, which, as I mentioned, is a designated state scenic corridor. The project site is located just north of Martins Beach. The road access road there is highlighted just below the bottom portion of the parcel. As I mentioned, the existing single-family residence is on the eastern portion of the parcel, and the rear of the property, again, kind of in this open space view, is relatively flat and supports the livestock grazing operation. This is the view from Cabrillo Highway, the driveway entrance, and then the gated entry just to the center of the slide. Here's a more detailed site plan. You can see it includes both the subject parcel and an adjacent parcel to the south. But the house, again, off to the east or the right side of the screen here, the proposed well is identified by the red circle on the west side. And then the each of the setbacks to other wells, Libidos Creek, etc., are shown on this slide. And then just an aerial view so that you can compare to the previous slides, giving the various setbacks. So staff reviewed the application for conformity with the county's general plan, local coastal program, and the architectural review standards, as it is located within the Cabrillo Highway State Scenic Corridor. In regards to the general plan, the project was found to be consistent with the noted applicable standards here. The proposed project was also reviewed against the policies of the local coastal program and is found to be consistent with those applicable policies. Specifically that the proposed agricultural well will support the existing agricultural activities on the property. The well has been proposed to be located in an area that is defined as prime soils for agriculture. However, agricultural wells are considered non-residential development, customarily considered accessory to agricultural activities, and therefore compliant. Further, the proposed project converts only a small portion of the parcel and does not impact the existing agricultural activities. As we saw from the street view, this isn't visible from the scenic corridor, and therefore the project was determined to be exempt from architectural review. And also just the long distance views from the roadway to the project site. In terms of environmental review, the project was found to be categorically exempt under section 15302 class 2 of the California Environmental Quality Act, specifically related to the replacement of an existing structure or facility located on the same site and having substantially the same purpose and capacity as the structure to be replaced. Therefore, it's staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission approve the coastal development permit and architectural review permit exemption, county file number 20 PLN 2023-00087, subject to the findings and conditions of approval listed in attachment A of the staff report. This concludes my presentation. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Do commissioners have questions for staff?
I just had one question. It said that the project work will start in summer. Does that mean this year, summer, or next year?
They may revise, the project, we had to do some follow-up investigation, so I think their initial goal was to do that this summer. They may still, there's nothing that would bar them from doing the work for the rest of the year, but it may be just for their operations that they would want to do in the summer.
Because the duration was short.
Yes, the
Right.
duration is short.
Okay. And like, I was not very clear on where those location of the different wells were. So can you bring up that stuff? Yeah, the one before this. The one that you just had, the
after.
colored one. This one, yeah. So where is the new well and?
It's
yeah.
the yellow
Yellow
bubble, and has the new
Right.
well marked.
Okay, new well. And these pink ones are what?
They're just giving distances to other important items. So for example, the edge of the existing pasture for the 135, and then the longer one is to Libido's Creek.
Sorry, I don't know which one is the longer.
Oh, so if we go kind of from this view, if we go to the left,
To the left. Okay.
you'll see that there's like a line, so that's the fencing that delineates the pasture area.
Okay.
So they have a line to that, and then the further out measurement is to Libido's Creek.
And this green one?
Is the septic system.
Okay.
So environmental health does have certain requirements for placement of wells and their distance to other or other facilities or other items that could be impacted. And so this map is showing those distances.
And then I see this blue one as the existing well.
That's correct.
Okay, and that will still continue to be used.
Yeah, so when this project was originally approved, the well that was approved basically served as a dual use. So it serves the home and it serves the agricultural activities on the parcel. Unfortunately, it's not performing sufficiently to support both. And so they're just looking to get the agricultural well to support the agricultural activities, and the existing well will continue to support the house.
So they will, both will be used.
That's correct.
Mhm. So, and to your knowledge, these these pink ones are the alternate locations in case the yellow one doesn't work out?
Correct.
Right, okay. So they have done some study as to where the alternate ones will be picked?
Absolutely, yes. So
Okay.
the applicant in this case is actually the water well specialist. And so that all of this information comes from them.
Thank you,
You're
thank you.
Question?
A little background information because I'm kind of ignorant of where things now stand. Is there any protection to prevent overdraft of the aquifer?
We do ask that we ensure that there's no like drawdown and the Libido's Creek isn't an adjudicated creek, but from the information provided from the applicant, we don't have any indication that they're drawing anything additional or beyond what would impact this specific area. But again, Libido's Creek isn't an adjudicated creek. So we aren't, it isn't monitored by the county's water master for how much pull.
Okay. Again, just background information for me. So there are standards to prevent drawdown for aquifers for the county?
It depends location. As Angela was mentioning, we do have adjudicated watersheds where it's more carefully evaluated. Although most of the adjudication is for direct withdrawals from the creek as opposed to drilling of wells. You know, a lot of our water systems, especially those that serve the urban areas, are managed by water districts who are required by state law to prepare groundwater management plans. So the withdrawals that the water districts undertake certainly are evaluated cumulatively for groundwater resource protection. In the rural areas, not as much. You know, we have done groundwater studies in certain areas of the coast where we have been concerned about overdraft. This particular watershed has not risen to a level of concern that has warranted any in-depth analysis for small scale projects such as this.
I was just wanting general information because I'm really ignorant. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I have no further questions.
Okay, we'll now open public comment for item 3. Madam Clerk, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are no comments for item 3 on Zoom or in person.
Thank you. We will now close public comment for item 3. Are there commissioners have any further questions or comments? We have a motion. A motion? Are we looking for? Oh, there you go.
I would like to move that the planning commission approve the coastal development permit and the agricultural review permit exemption for county file number PLN 2023-87, subject to the findings and conditions of approval listed in attachment A.
I second.
Thank you. That was a motion by Commissioner Hanson and a second by Commissioner Gupta. Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Serrano Kwan,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Chair Ketchum.
Aye,
Thank you, Chair. Motion carries.
thank you. We will now close item 3 and Madam Clerk, please introduce item 4.
Item 4, the county's tree removal ordinance, PLN 2018-00436. And your presenter is Planning Services Manager Bharat Singh.
Morning, Commissioners. It's been a long time coming, this ordinance update. I just would like to acknowledge all the effort that went in since 2016 and a whole different set of county planners that put the effort in there. I have been tasked with this responsibility of bringing it home. So this is the final stretch for this ordinance. So before I start, I would like to acknowledge a minor error in phrasing in the staff report. In the staff report, the ordinance is referred to as tree protection ordinance, while the actual name that we have is protected tree ordinance. And I apologize for that minor rephrasing that I did catch. I would also like to let the commission know that we are also in the process of updating the layout and the numbering of our ordinance. So what you're seeing right now will have a different numbering when it goes to the board, should you approve it today or at a later time, since the renumbering and reorganizing of the ordinance will be going before this to the board. So with that, let's get into the presentation. Okay. So just to give a brief project description, the planning and building staff and their consultants, DUDEC, have prepared an update of the county ordinance, text amendments and new ordinance language to the regulations governing the issuance of tree removal permits and the management of protected trees that make the county's ordinance consistent with the county's general plan. To give you a very brief project timeline, the actual work to update the ordinance started in October of 2022. Between October and January of 2024, we had hired the consultants DUDEC, and together with them, we had an engagement with stakeholders. We framed the approach to the ordinance reorganization based off of the work that was done by the original steering committee that had culminated in November of 2018. And we also then began drafting the initial ordinance and guidance documents for this purpose. January 2024 through June 2024, we basically worked on the actual admin draft. So there were several iterations that went back and forth, and those were refined. We also developed the content for the guidance website. And then at the end of June, we released the admin draft for public comment, and we launched the guidance website. So from July to now, we've had 3 presentations, one to this commission itself on July 10th. Then we had a follow-up presentation with the MCC on July 24th, and then with the North Fair Oaks Community Council on July 25th. We received a lot of comments. I think we have over the we curated about 140 some comments that is now on the website, so that everybody can have a look at what was sent to us. It included not only residents, but actual arborists, some other stakeholders as well, that provided very deep, insightful comments. We incorporated some of those, as you will see in the presentation, that made a lot of meaningful additions to the ordinance. And all of that has now come to today, where we are bringing in the updated draft for your recommendation to the board. The rest of the presentation will be done by the consultants that we have. Kevin Cullen, who is the project manager, will be taking on the presentation, and I'll come back again.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Cullinan. I'm a urban forestry project manager for DUDEC, the consulting firm. So why update the ordinance in the first place? Well, firstly, there were 2 separate ordinances, tree ordinances, the significant and the heritage tree ordinances, that the county wanted to consolidate into one unified ordinance. So that was the first one. There were community concerns about increased in construction impacting trees. The county wanted a clear process for tree removal and trimming in both the development and non-development projects sectors. There was a need for equitable enforcement costs for unincorporated communities, and the county wanted to align the tree ordinance with other environmental and development requirements within the county. So let's go over the major summary of changes. So first off, there should be pretty much greater protections for more trees within the county, as the minimum threshold for protections for protecting trees has gone down all the way to 12.1 inches in diameter or greater, and that's DSH is just diameter at standard height. That just means measured at 4.5 feet above the ground surface. There was a new section added for an undesirable species that could be excluded from the permits, which might include invasive species or fire risk. I'll go over that in just a minute. There were new protections for heritage trees, which are essentially designated by the board as being trees of important significance due to size, age, historic, cultural value, things like that. There's new protections for mitigation trees or trees that are required as part of permit conditions, replacement trees, things like that. There was new protections for communities of trees as well as protected indigenous trees, which I'll jump into now. Oh, and I should mention before that, the previous protections were at 38 inches or greater in diameter for non-indigenous trees, and then 19 inches for indigenous trees. So that was the previous protections. And now I'll jump into some of the new protections here. So some of the new species specific protections, we've added many species here, and it's a little bit hard to tell, but in the red font there, those are all new species added from public comments that we heard that the public wanted to see added to this list. So essentially what you'll see is that most of the deciduous trees are now protected at 10 inches in diameter or greater, and coniferous trees are protected at 19 inches or greater. And then we have additional protections for trees in riparian zones, which start at 6 inches and greater there. And then the county is going to be encouraging replanting with the same native species when those are removed where appropriate. And then in addition to removal permits, the county also has now added pruning permits as requirements. So you can see a pruning permit would be required now for any tree branch that is proposed to be pruned that's greater than 6 inches in diameter for protected indigenous tree species. And then if it's an oak tree branch that's being pruned, if that oak tree is 30 inches in diameter or greater, they'll need a permit regardless of the branch size for pruning that those kinds of trees. And then they'll also need a pruning permit for any pruning of branches on heritage trees as well. Another new addition was this in lieu fee, which is essentially an option for folks, applicants that do not have a feasible planting site. Say if they're building a structure and there's no more room or not sufficient enough room for a replacement tree, then they can pay this now flat fee of $3,345 per tree into a new county tree replacement fund that will go into supporting general urban forest management program activities within the county, such as tree plantings, replacements, and that could be on both public and private property. And the finer details of that program are still being worked out a little bit because it is a brand new program. Okay, and then another addition here is the required findings. So required findings for tree permit removal. You'll see on the left-hand side there, that includes development and non-development projects. So that would include things like if the tree is diseased or declining, if it's a hazard tree, if the removal of the proposed tree will create improved growing conditions for a tree of higher value. If it's the trees causing damage to infrastructure, such as sidewalk damage or sewer line damage, and some other reasons there as well. And then on the right-hand side, we have additional findings that need to be found in addition to the required findings on the left-hand side there. So that would include having an existing tree plan or tree protection plan, not having a feasible alternative building site, and then also not affecting more than 50% of the existing canopy being lost, and there's some exceptions to that. And then a new addition from public comment is also adding required findings for tree pruning permits in addition to the tree removal permits. Another new addition is the expedited tree permits for mostly undesirable species, which would include mostly invasives or tree species that are of fire risk, which would include things like acacia, tree of heaven, eucalyptus. But there's a big caveat to that, which we heard from public comment. There's a lot of concerns about large eucalyptus trees, especially in the coastal community, making up a big portion of the character of those communities. And so we've added in essentially an exception to that exemption. So any tree that is 38 inches in diameter or larger, regardless of if it's a desirable species or undesirable species, will still have to go through that full permit process so that it can ensure that ecological habitats are assessed during that permit issuance process.
Sure.
Why is Bay Laurel on this list?
For the exempted species, I believe it's okay. It's a vector for sudden oat death, which so that Yeah.
That's what I thought. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so then. Another new addition that we added based on public comment was the addition of requirements to comply with the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which essentially is getting at trying to remove the ability for, well, not ability, but trying to prevent unnecessary take of migratory or nesting birds during that season, which is generally from February to August. So that was another new addition there. And then we've also updated the tree replacement table, which is dependent on canopy size of the removed tree, and I'll show you that right now. So we have this is a partial table. It's not quite the whole table, but it can show you that essentially we have these approved replacement tree species that are based on size categories of the planting space. So in the light blue, you can see the different size planting area categories. And then we also have on the far right-hand columns, we have habitat appropriateness essentially for each of these tree species. And again, one of the new additions was adding a coastal habitat appropriateness category, as that was asked for in the public comment. And then to go along with the ordinance, we developed a companion website, which is meant to help folks, applicants guide them through the permitting process. So we'll have a interactive survey where it will kind of lead, different branches of questions will lead to different types of permits and guide them to the correct type of permit that they need, or if they don't need a permit for the type of work that they're trying to do. We also have resources, on why trees are protected in the first place, the benefits they provide, such as that figure on the right there. We also developed a new arborist report template, which should help standardize the reports that the consulting arborists are, turning in to the county to help with applicants. So that should help standardize things. And then we also have basic resources for tree care, tree planting, tree maintenance, tree watering, all those things on the website as well. Bharat already touched on this, but we did have a public comment period that was open from June 23rd to July 31st. Staff received a number of comments and reviewed those during the presentations to the Mid-Coast Community Council and the North Fair Oaks Community Council, as well as just emailed comments. And so we posted a summary of those responses, like Bharat said, and responses. Those are up on the project website. And then we updated the ordinance, permit requirements, guidance website, and tree species list based on those public comments as well. And I believe with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Bharat.
So just to give the commission an idea of where we are with our schedule. So as you've heard, we released the admin draft in late June. Through July, we had the series of presentations, including to this commission. We are now here on September 11th to seek your recommendation for the board. We are hoping that we get the recommendation today, and if we do, we are planning to go to the board for approval on October 22nd. And once we do have that approval, we will then figure out our schedule to go to the Coastal Commission for their review and approval. There are some aspects, as you've heard, that will still be needed to be worked on. So, for example, there is a outline for heritage tree designation that has to be done by the board. That actual process of how we go about that, we'll be working on that after we get the updated recommendation from you and the approval from the board. So there are a few other aspects, even the forms that we were mentioning and the guidance, the arborist report template, all of those things that are going to be on the companion website will all be completed and put into place as soon as we get the approvals from the board. So with that, I'll take us to the last slide of our presentation. I'll leave this with Ruth. My holding this right? So the recommendation that we are seeking today is that this commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors adopt the proposed ordinance text amendments and new ordinance language to the regulations governing the issuance of tree removal permits and the management of protected trees. So with that, I will end our presentation. And if Commission has any questions, we have myself, Kevin, Natalie, the county arborist, and Jared online is Dudek arborist. Are available for your questions.
Thank you. Can I just start off with the question on where is the protected tree replacement species list? Is that the table that was a few slides back? I was unable to find it in the ordinance or on the website.
We'll put it up on the website. There is a list. We are still working on it, so that's why it was not part of that, but that list will be available.
So that's not the table that was showed near
It
the,
is the
near the
table.
end.
It's in the presentation, but it's not in the published format in the ordinance at this point. We're still going.
Dying to see it. Okay.
We can certainly put that out as soon as we can.
All right. So colleagues here, any questions? Questions?
Yes, I do. So I'm trying to understand the difference. Maybe I couldn't understand from what I read. Difference between protected tree versus expedited tree versus protected indigenous trees. Like, I was getting a little confused by going through those different terminologies. I know that they are explained in the definition. Could you summarize those for me?
Certainly. So just to outline, so there's so just to give a context of that. So in the existing ordinance, heritage trees are two types. One are, native species, desired species, et cetera, that I think are class 1, and class 2 are something that the board finds culturally, important or any other way important to the county or the community, and they can designate that. So there were these two classifications. So that class 1, which is based on the species, native species, and importance to local ecology, has been moved to what we call the protected trees, so that you don't have to have it classified as heritage tree. It gets automatic designation as protections, and it has additional protections and not really tied to the heritage tree definition. But again, more protections of that. In terms of expedited, that's an expedited permit. What trees would be come under that if you need an expedited permit? That I don't really believe is specific to a tree species, but mostly to the situation that that tree is in, either risk to life and limb or other issues. Then you would get an expedited permit through that process. So there might be certain trees that are invasive that are part of that expedited purpose. So, for example, if it's virus and things like that. And what was the third one?
Third is the protected indigenous trees.
It's a subset of the protected trees. So you've got indigenous trees, native trees. I think these are more. I would ask Natalie to see if there's a specific definition, but my assumption is it's just as
Yeah, so the Natalie Krug, San Mateo County arborist. The protected indigenous trees are essentially what heritage trees, class 2 heritage trees were in the prior ordinance. And so rather than class 2 heritage trees were protected at a much larger size. And now with protected indigenous trees, now those classifications are protected at 10 inches on average.
Okay.
With a few
That was right.
exceptions.
And to somebody who has a tree and they want to either prune it or remove it, they will be able to figure out which category it falls in.
Yes, so the guidance website has that, do I need a permit? And if they walk through that, they should get an idea of, do they need a permit, and what kind of permit. So species of the tree, what are you trying to do with it, et cetera, et cetera. That should streamline that for them to understand that do they need permit or not. Where to go about it. So that's the purpose of that.
So this application, you are still working on that, or it's
Yes,
already
we are
in
working on,
place?
again, we can't really have it in place before the ordinance is passed, so it's all prepared. We're working on some sort of fine tuning of it. Once all of that is approved with the board, we can then put all of that out there, so that it works with the new ordinance.
Thank you for explaining that. And my second and the last question is about this solar shade control. It said that solar shade control would allow, this is my understanding, would allow pruning of a tree to, so is it making sense that the way I'm understanding it is, supposing, is it for just allowing sun to come through?
So there is a requirement for solar access. And I can only prefer to Kevin here to be more explicit than I am. But essentially, there is an ordinance for solar access, and I think this is to accommodate for that and not be in conflict with that. So, but I will reference it. Yeah.
So the Solar Shade Act is mostly about what was there first. So usually trees actually that are already protected from an ordinance are usually protected in that they would still need a permit, even if they're being pruned for solar shade clearance, things like that. And there are protections for trees that are already protected in ordinance if they were there before the solar structure was installed. But if it's a newly planted tree, then yeah, the solar structure would have the priority there. But usually you still need to apply for a permit in most cases, depending on if that tree is protected within the ordinance of that size. Yeah.
And what do you mean by solar structure?
Well, I mean, it could be solar panels on the roof. It could be parking lot, solar shade structure, things like that. Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you. No more questions.
I've got two questions. Let me turn this off. I was looking at the fees for penalties. And there's a 3-tier set of fees. And I was thinking, if I was a developer, those fees don't mean anything. So what type of bite do we have for a developer? Even if we had the maximum amount, let's say $33,000 fee, and you have this big project, it's not even 1% of the thing, it doesn't, just the cost of raising it up a little bit or something, and there's no real bite. So is there a bite for a developer?
Yes, so there's a couple different ways in which we try and tackle that situation. We do require an after the fact application that's accompanied by a restoration plan. And through that process, we'll try to require reestablishment of the significant trees that were illegally removed over time, of course. And we can use the facts surrounding the removal to in our review of the development proposal. So in reviewing the development proposal, if trees have been illegally removed, we can review the development proposal as if those trees hadn't been removed and restrict the development such that the restoration plan required can be effectively achieved. So will require replacement, and the development, the proposed development will need to respect the required replacement.
I was thinking more of a bite like, okay, you've done this again, you know, you lose your right to develop for a year. Something that is meaningful.
Yes, so in fact, I know in the existing ordinance, there is the ability to establish a moratorium for development on sites where trees have been illegally removed for a year. I don't know if that's been retained in the update. My assumption is.
May I think I saw here was 18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
So it has been retained.
Right.
And it's been pushed up
Yes,
to
so
18
yeah,
months.
there is a stop work order. with,
Right.
Condition in there.
Right.
Okay.
You had a second question?
My second question. Let me turn this down so I don't get my feedback. There is a high cost for neighborhoods to come in and say, we got a problem with a developer. And for the most part, we kind of rely on a complaint base, I think. We're looking for the community to be the eyes to come out and say, we noticed something. Has there been any thought in saying, if these eyes come forward and they put the money up front and they win, that we give the money back to them? So, make sure the fees aren't an implement to, the fees are be applied to prevent frivolous ones. But if they actually win, we refund the money back.
You're talking about an appeal, I assume. So somebody appeals approval of a tree removal permit.
Mhm.
And I think your suggestion is that if the appeal is granted, that there should be some sort of refund of the appeal fee. We have talked about that at a broader scale, because this comes up not only with appeals of trees. So I think the department has options to pursue through future changes to our appeal regulations, both with regard to trees and other appeals. That's not currently part of this package, but it's something that we may pursue in the future.
Those are my two questions.
Just protected tree replacement species that I asked about. I noticed that currently on the county website, on the application to remove a tree, it has a list of replacement trees that are, at least half of them are what we now consider, oh, get it out of here, it's a problem. And so I just, at least take that page off. I mean, say, we don't have our list yet or something is just disturbing. Another thing that concerns me about just in general, trying to get better results with our tree management in the county and to make, okay, so as far as a recent addition there was to exempt county parks or public works from getting a permit, and I understand that. But if it were a situation, private property who had to get a permit for pruning, I'm not really sure what standards would, how you achieve more knowledgeable pruning or things like that. Like, let's just take Public Works or Caltrans for that matter, for pruning for sight distance. And on their website, Cal Public Works has a beautiful picture of a wooded road, no development around, and the saying that this is such an asset to the community, the trees along the road, but you got to have sight distance. And then they go on to explain about all these, if the trees in the right of way, it's actually your tree, but you don't have any control over it. And they don't prune for aesthetics, the term they use. And so they would come along and just cut the branch at the edge of the right of way or whatever, wherever they, for their functional purpose for sight distance. Whereas if this is a cypress tree or pine or something, and it's along the road, if you cut it, but there's no foliage, it will die and you'll have this ugly stump. And the homeowner might say, well, I'd like to cut that stump off. And then they're told, you have to get a permit to do that. Whereas the Public Works is just, you know, they could have just cut it back to the trunk. Maybe the reason they don't is because it's not in the right of way. And then the other thing is that if they come along with the hedging kind of approach, so there is foliage and the branch doesn't die, then it's just going to grow out there and you have to come back and prune it again. All these things, and I understand this is really part of this ordinance, but where do you deal with this? And it's just that I spend most of my free time volunteering, going out, pruning things so they look nice. My goal is to prune something so you don't know it's been pruned, but it's better. Anyway, I just had to get that off my chest, whatever. Oh, one more thing. So in the ordinance, it says it refers to ANSI A300 as a reference on how to do everything really good about all this stuff. And, but I guess you had to pay money to see that document. So, you know, once again, I'd love to see it, whether it be, how would this be handled as far as people wanting to know what those best practices are.
So on the website, part of the resources that we'll be posting are basically ANSI practices for pruning, tree pruning. So we'll have, you know, illustrations, graphics that show proper pruning technique.
Per species. In
Well,
some case.
they're general. I mean, it's
Yeah.
they're mostly, I guess, for deciduous, but yeah, I mean, we have graphics and illustrations that show kind of the general concepts of pruning, right? That follow along with the ANSI standards.
So most of this is to come and it'll be on this website.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, I guess, you know, and the other striking thing about this whole process since, what was it, 2016 we started on this, was the stark difference between the concerns on the bay side and the coast side. It's just opposite. And the bay side, on the coast side, it's just these three species that have just moved in and taken over, and too many of them. And then it seems as though most people don't know any other trees other than eucalyptus, pine, and Monterey cypress. And so they plant them for every purpose. And they're hedged and they're just tortured. And then if it grows too big and it's in their sight distance to the ocean, somebody will sneak in and cut the top off. Whereas, you know, you could prune for a filtered view and it would be beautiful all the way around. I just, I've been very interested in this whole process. I was on the tree committee back when it started out. And these are just things that I wish there were some magic wand that we could have all the trees pruned beautifully. Anyway, okay, that wasn't a question, sorry. So if there's no further questions at this point, let's open. Oh, okay.
Let me see. Number 99013. Let's see. No, I'm sorry, 99010. Processing and protected tree permits. Limited notification of protected trees to only 100 feet. So isn't that a little too short of the distance for not notifying the public?
So the way that the 100 feet is from the property line, so it's not, it will cover adjacent neighborhoods. What we are looking to do is to have a system where people who want to be notified about tree removal permits in their community we are going to set up a system where they can sort of self-select that they want to be notified for that beyond the 100 feet. So that we can send out a notification by email to them if within their community, there is a tree removal application that has been either approved or is, whenever the notice goes on the property of that, they will be notified that there is a permit. So that's what we are looking to establish. The typical 100 feet is essentially your immediate adjacent properties are blocked as such. There is some concern that some folks have mentioned in the comments that, 100 feet would not even get you to another neighbor, but like they're misconstruing it from where the tree is. This is basically the property. So whatever the size of the property, 100 feet from the edges of the property is what we are notifying.
Yeah, it still seems a little too short of a distance to me. I think I thought before I thought it was 300 feet.
Yeah, I think in the comment too, it was mentioned some other thing in there, was a 300 foot. Seems like just for simplicity, just pick that, be consistent with the number instead of thinking, now was that 300 feet or was that 100 feet? I have this trouble on the driving test.
Yeah, because my concern, as you just mentioned, that in order to get notified, you would have to be opt in into, I don't know what system, in order to be notified. But if you don't know something is happening, how do you know? How would you go about?
We can certainly reconsider the size, but what the opt-in aspect of it is, we also don't want to, oversend the local information to communities where they may start to ignore other things that are more important to them. So there's a matter of sort of making that balance, but we can certainly consider the length of notification of the area.
Okay, yeah. That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, now I'd like to open public comment for item 4. Madam Clerk, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will first call on speakers in chambers, and that is Ron Snow.
So I'm Ron Snow. I live in Menlo Park in county. And I think a lot of your questions were right on it since because it's the precious, the 100-foot aspect is such a, it just doesn't notify people. And then it's not clear if the property owner's getting notified or if people that are living in the houses. So I had suggested 600 feet. This ability to notify is built into the county systems already. I've been doing a lot of stuff with public works on traffic safety, and they have the ability to target an area and automatically send the notification. So the goal of this thing is not necessarily to, from my perspective, is not necessarily to require tree permits and monitor tree permits. The goal is to really protect our county resource, to protect the canopy, to make sure that we have a canopy for the future and that we have healthy, good environmental areas for wildlife, supposed to air we breathe, the sun we get, or the shade we get. So I think it's really important to modify our thinking a little bit and to evaluate this from that perspective as well. And so I really encourage you to, I don't think this is ready for prime time. It's great progress in a lot of things. I'm glad that you kept the aspect of being able to pursue a developer with moratoriums and things like that. And the 18 months sounds really good. We had a lot of experience in our neighborhood where the arborist that was hired was one that was selected to provide a negative report. The developer just wanted to clear the land or clear the lot. In this case, it was a residential lot. And so we had to, and the permission was granted to remove the tree. So we had to do an appeal. I couldn't afford to do that appeal. We had to do a fundraiser to get the money to do an appeal. And then it would have helped if the money had been returned. That would be great. But the thing is, that I think we need to protect from that kind of practice where you hire the guy that's going to give you the negative report. You can hire the guy that is going to say there's a crack there, so we got to take the tree down. Or the roots are starting to get into the sewer, we got to take the tree down. There's got to be better protections from that kind of practice that developers use. I think also that in the case of cost, the costs ought to be built into the removal fee. So an ability, so instead of trying to cover, I think that in this case, the builder fee, I might be wrong on this, but it was like $700 or $800. The cost to appeal was $740. And so like, why does it cost more to appeal? I mean, there's a lot more work going into the tree removal permit than there is in the appeal. So I really think that a lot of these areas where trees are being removed are areas where there are established neighborhoods in some cases, and that's sort of my reference right now. There's older people living there, there are fixed income people there. If you drive through the poorer neighborhoods in the county, they look blighted in the sense of trees. And so there's a need to protect things, and it shouldn't cost money or a lot of money to protect trees. So I would say load up the tree permit side of it with the fee and substantially lower the cost of the appeal. I'm gonna switch this. I would also like to see that there's an automatic designation for heritage trees or for protected trees. The way this thing is written now, the thousands and thousands and thousands of trees that would be protected or covered by a tree ordinance are required to go to the Board of Supervisors. It means I have to file a report, a permit. I don't know if that costs money, it shouldn't, but then the Board of Supervisors have to approve that. And I think there should be an automatic designation for heritage trees that maybe based on what the supervisors would use in their criteria. Sorry about slow reader. Oh, and the notification of people, I think it's really important to get people notification to all the people. So when a tree is illegally removed, it should have the same notification requirements as a tree, so that people in the area know what's happening. They know that it was an illegal removal, and they can notify county with their concerns and their suggestions on what would be a good remedy to fix that problem. So I think notification need to occur even when there's illegal or exceptional or an exception tree.
We will now move on to public comments on Zoom, and I will call on Reed. Go
Hi there.
ahead.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Reed. I'm a homeowner in the North Fair Oaks neighborhood, and I am here to give a little bit of perspective, for lack of a better term, for the little guy. I am not a developer. I own a single family home on quite a small lot, and I have now been through the tree permitting process twice. One was for a redwood tree, and the other is for an invasive tree of heaven. And both of those trees fell under the same process because they were both deemed a significant tree. This process has come at an enormous cost to us. I'm well over $1,000 into this, and we haven't even taken either tree down at this point. And it's going to require another tens of thousands of dollars to fix the damage that both of these trees have done to our property. And the reason I mention this is because we've talked a little bit about fees here, and I just want to make sure that you guys are seeing the perspective of the single family homeowner who's strapped for cash and being able to get through this process. I understand appeals are necessary in lots of cases, but there is a lot of onus on the homeowner to submit a lot of proof to be able to take these trees down, and those inspections and repairs are extremely costly. To me, putting a tree of heaven that's invasive, that is not really wanted, it's popping up tree buds in our neighbors' yards, across the street, in the lot behind us, and it will continue to spread. Taking that tree down to me, should not be classified in the same category as the redwood tree by any means. We're doing our neighborhood, in my opinion, a favor by taking this tree down by, we have a replanting plan for that. And we, of course, would like tree and shade in our yard. But the process is extremely cumbersome and difficult. And as I mentioned, costly. So I'm not going to take up the whole time here, but I just wanted to speak in favor of this. I really am supportive of separating significant trees out from other species that are invasive and actually kill trees in their vicinity. And, even our replanting plan for the redwood would come at it wouldn't be successful by leaving the tree of heaven, because the tree of heaven does not allow plants and trees in its vicinity to survive. And so we're being asked to replant next to a tree of heaven that will kill the tree that we replant. But now we have to go through the same process, spending hundreds of dollars on permits and inspections and arborists and all this other stuff. So I just want to give you guys that perspective, and I truly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, Madam Chair, there are no further hands raised on Zoom and no more comments for item 4.
Thank you. We will now close public comment for item 4. Further questions, discussion here?
Let me see. So, this last participant, this is precisely, I think, why we need a tree ordinance that is easily interpreted, and that people can understand exactly what the rules are. And this is where we are caught between people who want to protect every tree in the neighborhood and those who have situations where they need to remove trees. And we should, at the same time, not make it impossible so that they can resolve a situation. Like what this gentleman was saying, they have trees that are causing serious damage, and there should be a process where should be able to remove those, but have a way of replacing those trees, even if they're not desirable trees. Then we move on to having a way that we can demand that the new trees that are replaced are desirable trees, native trees, and they go in somewhere else where they will actually survive. So I hope that that's what we're doing with what we have before us, to try to resolve some of these situations. But I hope that you also will go back to some of the comments that came from the people that send in correspondence, because I think there are some interesting points that people are making. That's it.
Yeah, I'd like to add that I think the 300 feet is the minimum of notification from almost anything. It is, most property with some in an urban area is 50 feet, wide. So 100 feet, you're just getting 2 houses around you, 2 here, 2 here, 2, maybe 6 total. That's a heritage tree. That's the whole block. It's part of the community. So it nearly needs to be 300 feet minimum. That's my only comment.
No, I think I can see the points that the last speaker made. Like, he faced it. He faced the problem, and I don't know where it stands right now in his case, but yes, this is the other side. We are looking at a big picture in this ordinance here, going through various conditions. If it's this, you do this, but yes, it's causing damage to his property, and as he says, to his neighboring property. So we have to make sure that, that we address those things in this ordinance. And yes, 300 feet is, in everything in the past, we have come across at least 300 feet for informing the neighbors, right? For any changes, not just trees, but anything coming up in any construction or anything. It has been 300 feet. And even 300 feet on bigger properties doesn't seem much either. It may only be one neighbor on each side.
Right.
Right, yeah. So, okay, that's my comment. Thank you.
Well, I support the 300 feet too, and I assume this is a mail, it's coming in the mail and just says resident at such and such an address. And I don't think that's an imposition. I mean, people might get tired if they're getting the emails, but and they aren't going to be aware. I mean, just from looking at next door or whatever, people don't know how government works until it really affects them. And why wasn't I told and whatever. So yeah, I think the 300 feet would be good. As to the, well, a couple things come up in the case of the homeowner with the redwood tree and the tree of heaven, you know, and I think if he, and also if when he cuts the tree of heaven down, all the trees that are coming up in the neighbor's yard, he's gonna have to treat that stump and maybe retreat it, and the neighbors as well, because the roots are just gonna keep going. And so the guy ought to get a reward. I mean, you know, it shouldn't have to pay, and he should say, great, and tell your neighbors that they're gonna, you know, help them out. And as far as a redwood tree goes, well, I don't know when it was planted, but it's like, fine, if you got a property and a redwood tree there and you decide to build your house, but if you planted a redwood tree in your yard, I mean, this is like how to educate people on landscaping. You know, and I was very encouraged by the, I don't know what portion of it's on the website or what about the, I assume, okay, so the recommended tree species, you know, to have the expected size, you know, and do you want to plant a tree that's 40 feet wide and 80 feet tall next to your house on this little, you know, so that people know what they're getting into. All that kind of education, it will be, I think it'll be very helpful. So we're, the only specific thing that we seem to agree on is to expand it out to 300 feet for the noticing. Was there anything else that we were really asking to be amended? Lost track.
I didn't hear anything else besides that,
Okay.
unless someone wants to bring it up now.
Okay.
So I can make the recommendation if you want.
I just wanted to say that also. Right, there are probably many things that could still be done to improve this, and I think you're still working and thinking, and thing comes up later, you put it on the website, and I just think it's way better than what we had before, and we need to at least get this approved.
All right. With that, I move that the planning commission recommend that the Board of Supervisors adopt the proposed ordinance text amendments and new ordinance language to the regulations governing the issuance of tree removal permits and the management of protected trees that make the county's ordinance consistent to intent of the county's general plan with the addition of the 300 foot what do you call it? Notification added to that.
I will second that.
Thank you. That was a motion by Commissioner Ramirez and a second by Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Serrano Kwan,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Chair Ketchum.
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. Motion carries.
Thank you to everybody, staff, everyone that's worked on this for so long. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, it's me. So we're going to close item 4 and move on to items 5 through 7 from the director.
Yes, thank you. So the only correspondence we received prior to today's meeting had to do with the protected tree ordinance, and I believe we've covered those. So I'll move on to item 6. We do not have a study session planned for our next meeting, which will be on September 25th. We do have 2 regular items currently on the agenda. They're both for new homes on vacant sites in on the coast side. One in El Granada on Sonora Avenue and one in Moss Beach on Cypress Avenue. Moving on to item 7, director's report. Wanted to alert the commissioners to some upcoming Board of Supervisors items. At the October 8th board meeting, we currently have 4 items planned. One is the Bagerman appeal that had actually been scheduled for yesterday's, actually not yesterday's, the meeting between now and October 8th. But the 2 parties continue to work together, and the applicant agreed to a continuance because I think it's in everyone's interest to see them come up with a compromise. So unless they're unable to do that, we'll be hearing the appeal on October 8th. We also have a proposed Williamson Act contract for a property in San Gregorio that's being used for grazing purposes. We have the ordinance reorganization that was presented to you at the last Planning Commission meeting. We've been working away at making sure all gender references are removed, and the final package to the board will include those changes. So thank you for your suggestions there. And then finally, the board will be hearing the appeal of the Woodland School conditional use permit. That's the private school in Ladera that previously came to the Planning Commission. I had mentioned at the last meeting during the director's report that we have been working on an update to our planning fee schedule. That was going to go to the board actually yesterday, but it's been postponed to sometime in November. So more work occurring on that. And that concludes my director's report for this morning. Thank you very much.
Steve, I have one item.
Oh, please, Mr. Fox.
As the commission may recall, the Cypress Point Affordable Housing Project was presented to the county in essentially 2 separate items. One was a local coastal program amendment and some zoning amendments occurring that required coastal commission certification. And then subsequently, there was a coastal development permit application to follow. The first action, the one that went before the Coastal Commission, was challenged in a lawsuit in San Francisco Superior Court by a neighborhood group called Midcoast Eco. The trial court ruled in the Coastal Commission's favor. The county was involved in the lawsuit in a capacity called a real party in interest, where we were also litigating along with the Coastal Commission. So the trial court entered a judgment in favor of the Coastal Commission 2 years ago, and that was appealed to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal issued a written ruling last week saying that the Coastal Commission's environmental review of the LCP amendments was adequate, and that therefore the decision would stand. So in the meantime, the county had already taken action on the coastal development permits in March. And had relied upon a new exemption from CEQA that had been implemented in the meantime. But just wanted you to be aware that while it's possible that Midcoast Eco may seek further appeal before the California Supreme Court, it is actually more likely that that project will proceed to its next phase.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
So this was the affordable housing being done by MidPen,
That's correct. Midpen
Correct.
Housing, 71 units.
right? So Thank you.
If they were to appeal it again, how long do they have to do that?
I should know this off the top of my head. I know the appeal deadline from trial courts, but the process in the California Supreme Court, I think it might be 60 days.
Not
From
100, not 300?
no, no, but there's a whole there's a process available for that, but the California Supreme Court takes very few civil cases because as a court, their plate is full of criminal appeals that they're required to rule upon. So they really only take like 5 civil cases a year. So it's really unlikely for the case to be taken up by the California Supreme Court.
Do you know if that's why they haven't actually purchased the land yet? Are they waiting for this decision?
I actually don't know.
Okay. Interesting news. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.